Yo, what's up? Time for another probably mediocre video, but hopefully better than yesterday's. Don't even want to say hi? Alright, so I wanted to talk about the Airmatic suspension. A lot of people get kind of scared about this because it is different. They have been using them for a long time on Range Rovers and trucks. So it's not like they're not durable. I mean, take the Range Rover part out of that, but like on trucks, you know, it's not like they're not durable. And it's not like they haven't been around for a while. And most of the high-end cars do in fact use these. So, you know, just to kind of quickly go over the advantages. The advantages are that the spring rate is not exactly linear. So usually when you have a linear spring rate, when you bounce, you'll just keep bouncing forever unless there's some sort of a resistance. The dampers are supposed to provide that resistance. Ideally, you go like one bounce and flat. That usually doesn't happen. So air springs have multiple types of resistances put in place. They have the air itself when it compresses. They have the bag. So it's more progressive. And then you have the shock absorbers. They also self-level. And shock absorbers now are, they sort of level themselves too. Like they're not exactly level, but you know, on one end of the spectrum, you have like the Cadillac magnetic system, which is very fast, very active. I think Ferrari probably uses something like that. And then there's other types of shocks too, which are semi-adaptive, and they can change their dampening based on like like the wheel angle, the road. Some actually have forward-facing cameras. On like a CLS, it'll probably just look at like the wheel angle. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the airbags, what can go wrong, how much they cost. I've seen a lot of people get really ripped off on these on like Range Rovers, but to be honest, a lot of it's pretty easy. You don't have to get ripped off, and a lot of it's a do-it-yourself issue too. You do have to kind of think about it. You know, you're gonna probably have to do some of the diagnostic work yourself or bring it to some place that really knows air suspensions well. And to be honest, not every single independent mechanic is going to know them very well. So my first tip, I wish I had like some sort of like Greek graphic here, but my first tip is like bottle with soapy water. So a spray bottle, the like you mix it with some like dish soap and some water, you know, just enough so that it'll bubble if it, you know, if there's air. If you find that one of the springs is, or one of the sides is like lower, what you're gonna wanna do is spray that air spring with the bubbly water. And you're going to want to look for any bubbles. There's also the lines that connect to the air springs. Those can be super cheap to fix and like a super easy do-it-yourself. You're gonna have to think about it a little bit because I don't think they make parts to just, you know, splice in, but they do make them, but like not in a kit. They're not gonna like advertise it, I don't think. The airbags in the rears are not that expensive. I think they're like $90 a side. The airbags in the front are a little more expensive because they have the shock absorbers in, you know, with them. So those are, I think if you get the shocks, like everything is like $1,000, maybe $1,100, and that would be like official. Like Chinese parts would probably be less. You can probably just rebuild the bag. That's possible. And you know, you might be able to get away with, you know, $90 on the front too, but for a full replacement it would probably be like $1,100 a side. With Mercedes-Benz parts, they take about 2 hours for the fronts. The rears I think are a little bit easier, but I mean, I'm talking 2 hours like a guy like me doing it, not like a professional mechanic. And I think you can do it too. They're pretty much do it yourself. So you just have to isolate the problem and then you have to fix it. The air compressors can also go bad. Those are in the trunk, I believe on like the left side. Those are like $300 to $600 depending on if you get like name brand like Mercedes-Benz or you go with an aftermarket. Some of the aftermarket springs are not Dunlop. And they probably also make the compressors too. The other area that the air springs can leak air from is the valve block. So like the valve block is where it controls where the air goes to. And there's two parts that can be bad. Like one is internally, and they do make seal kits where you can reseal stuff. Let's see, you want me to get you that many Roblox?
Yes.
That's insane.
No, well, I don't want you to get me that many Roblox, but look how much this sword is, and then look how when people reach.
Oh man, he wants. Oh man. Okay, so I'm definitely not.
To make the price of it.
Yeah, so like repairing your air suspension is going to cost a lot less than that. But yeah, so the valve block you can actually repair. They do make kits for them. And you know, it's like some O-rings. You put them in the oven for like, you know, 300, not 300, less than 300 degrees, like 200 degrees Fahrenheit for a little while. But you can also just buy a new valve block. Those aren't that expensive. So like, let's say you're going to repair a line like at a dealer or an independent mechanic. I would guess it's going to be about $200. If you do it yourself, it could be as little as like $20. Valve block, probably around $300. And if you do it yourself with a new piece, if you're going to, you know, rebuild it, like a rebuild kit, probably like $80 maybe. Air compressors, also like do it yourself. You might want to use, you know, some sort of a coating system to make sure that you don't have any air in the system before you like replace these parts. But yeah, overall, it's a lot easier than you think. So let's say we were just gonna like look, you know, really quick example. You know, it's in the morning. You know, your car is a lot lower. What you'd want to do is drive it for a while. It'll start to go up because it probably won't catastrophically fail. And then you spray the air springs with it. Like with the soapy water, and look at it with like a picture, you know, like a camera, a borescope or whatever, maybe take the wheels off, and you just hit all the parts, like the line, the air spring, and you just make sure it's, you know, there's no bubbles. If there's a bubble, you replace that part. Let's say you just get out of the car and it lowers a little bit, that's normal. If one side goes down, it'll try to self-level usually. So it'll probably all go down at the same time. That doesn't mean your air springs are okay. Like, it doesn't mean that. And you don't want to ignore this, because if you ignore it, it puts a lot more stress on the compressor, and you'll have to replace that too. So you don't want to make like a $20 job or an $80 job like a $500 job. So you want to get, you know, you want to kind of address it quickly. Sometimes the air springs leak when they're at different heights. So, you know, you might actually be okay at one height, but not okay at a different height. Just replace it. But what happens is like the rubber kind of bends a little. And so anyway, you know, there's some ideas. Don't get too scared about it. As I mentioned in the other video, it can be a problem. You might have to replace it, but it's not the end of the world. It's really not. And it's something that do-it-yourself can handle. So like all four sides, new air springs. I mean, if you did it yourself, like you're talking like $2,500, less than that, with the compressor and the block, less than $3,000 if you did it yourself. So, I mean, a nice set of coilovers is probably going to be about that expensive, I would guess, too. And you can also lower the air suspension. They have air lowering modules, and you can dial it in, take some great pictures like JDM, Steven, and you can, you know, put it to whatever height you want, you know, within reason. The air suspension modes I'll talk about really briefly right here. You have Comfort, which is a little bit higher. You have Sport, which is a little lower. I believe Sport cuts out a whole chamber, so there's not as much air. So the spring, like imagine there's two chambers. I think it cuts out a whole chamber. So it's not as springy, if you will. And then on top of that, you have an extended mode. So if you did sport extended, it would be sport mode, but extended higher. And then if you did comfort extended, it'd be comfort mode, but higher. And you can run extended mode up to like 50 miles per hour. It's probably a good idea if it's like snowy or there's like, I don't know, like you're on a gravel driveway with like, you know, I don't know, twigs on the ground or something. So, or you're driving through water, you know, it's probably better to drive with, you know, an extended comfort mode if you're driving through water. Yeah, so those are some ideas. And like I mentioned, it might be okay at one height, but not okay at another height. It might look like the whole car is level in the morning and then pumps up and everything's fine. It's not fine. Go use the soapy water, figure it out. I'm saying this for your benefit, all right? Like, if you want to pretend it's fine, I'm going to let you live with that, you know, misconception. But if you want to make sure that your air compressor doesn't go out, you might want to check that earlier than later. So these are things you want to address earlier than later. All right, have a good one. Happy Super Bowl. Peace.